Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host, Anthony Gamer, and the arcade is now open. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing lost media for the Colecovision. During what's called the golden age of video games, that being the late 70s into the early 80s, Colecovision was one of the top three home game consoles alongside the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision. And with the video game crash of 1983 and 84, a lot of video games that were advertised to come out never did, not just for the ColecoVision, but for other game systems as well. When we talk about games that have been canceled, every once in a while a prototype ROM will be located. Now these can be found all kinds of interesting ways, either on a cart sometimes, like at a yard sale, hobby shop, whatever. And then sometimes the bin files or the ROMs are found on a programmer's computer or a disk somewhere. Now that's if you're lucky. Unfortunately, there are sometimes prototype games in which no playable build is ever found, and that's what we call lost media. Now, I have made videos before about lost media for the Intellivision and the Atari 2600, and I was able to find some more for the ColecoVision, and actually I did find more for others, but I'll get to that in a later episode. So for today, let's discuss the lost media for the ColecoVision. So how do we know about this lost media in the first place? Well, the number one way that people from the golden age of video games learn about lost games is through a catalog. When you would purchase a video game back in the day, you would get all kinds of cool goodies, usually, of course, the instruction manual, a warranty card, and then some game companies would actually put in a catalog of upcoming games. Now, I know for some of our younger viewers, that's hard to imagine, as nowadays when you buy a video game, you get the package in the game. If you want to see the manual, you have to go online. And sometimes you don't even have to buy a physical copy. You can download the games right from your game system. That's how I got the Cuphead game. But regardless, we would purchase these games, and then we would get the catalogs, and when we would be looking forward to these forthcoming games. Well, with the video game crash of 83 and 84, a lot of these games were never released and nothing about them has been found. Okay, now the first game we're going to discuss today is Sidetrack. You can see it's a right alongside Venture, and of course that game was released. Now Sidetrack is an interesting sort of game. I had never heard of it until I saw this advertisement myself, although some of you that spent a lot of time in the arcade in the early 80s or in late 70s are probably way ahead of me on this one. And I'll read the description. This fast-moving game puts you in control of a thundering locomotive. You must direct the locomotive down the track and pick up the passengers along the way. In doing so, you must avoid a deadly runaway train that is out to demolish your locomotive. Can you stay on the track and score? Now, the arcade game was from 1979 and was released by Exidy. So let's look at that arcade game right now. Alright, as you can see, this is definitely one of those late 70s arcade games where they didn't have a lot of color. Now, if you look here at the advertisement one more time, you'll see that, according to this artist's rendition, that they actually were going to have color in it. Now, again, a playable build hasn't been found, and as I had mentioned in a previous episode, don't always believe the screenshot because sometimes they're not screenshots, they're actually artist renditions of what they think the game will look like according to what the people tell them. And next up we have Spectar. Now this is on the same page as Mousetrap, which of course was released for the ColecoVision, the Atari, and all kinds of other systems later on. Great game. But anyway, now Spectar was from 1980 and was also by Exidy Incorporated, and the description is, in this fast action game, you must direct an armored car through a tangled maze, negotiating sharp turns at unbelievably high speeds. But as you traverse the terrain, a variety of tank-like vehicles emerge to attack and destroy your car. How many of the enemy vehicles can you outmaneuver and destroy in the allotted time? And once again, you see that we have the arcade cabinet from the game and a alleged screenshot of what the ColecoVision version of the game looked like. So let's check out the arcade game. So you can see that the arcade game is pretty simplistic. It's only got like mostly three colors, red, green, and blue, as to where the screenshot for the ColecoVision version looks like they were going to incorporate more colors. It's a pretty simplistic game, actually. You're just kind of picking up dots and trying to shoot the other cars. Pretty cool game. It's a shame, though, that it wasn't successfully released, as really I had a lot of fun playing this game. And next up we have Ripcord. It is on this page right next to Ladybug, which of course did get released. Now in the game Ripcord, this daring skydiving game puts you in charge of a parachutist. You've got to time his jump out of a high altitude plane and allow him to free fall as long as you dare. Then pull his ripcord and get him to land exactly on one of the targets. But watch out, the sky is full of dangerous helicopters. The skydiver must avoid them to survive. Now, again, you can see this artist's rendition of this supposed screenshot, and you can see the colors. Well, let's check out what the arcade version looked like. As you can see, like some of the other Exidy games, this game was strictly in black and white, which again makes sense as it came out in 1978. It's actually still a pretty fun game, though, to be honest with you, and of course there have been many games that have been inspired by it that came out years later. It's a shame, though, that it wasn't released, as I can tell you, this game itself is quite fun and a little on the addictive side, but sometimes it's cool just to purposely, find creative ways to kill the parachutist, but, that's just me. Next up, we have what would have been called the head-to-head baseball and head-to-head football. Now, if you look at the screenshots, they look quite a bit like the real sports baseball and football games that the Atari 2600 and then later the 5200 had. Now, this is my opinion, so please don't come for me. I don't really think that the regular ColecoVision controller was really all that comparable to play sports games on, but that's why they created this thing, the Super Action controller, and of course they created Super Action football and Super Action baseball to go with this cool controller. Here is Super Action baseball, and here is Super Action football. As you can see, these games look totally different than the head-to-head games that were advertised in the catalog. Whether they actually started on the head-to-head games or if those were artist depictions, we'll probably never know. However, the Super Action games were pretty cool, and if you haven't tried them out, of course you've got to play them with the Super Action controller. That's the only way to do it. Let me know what you thought of them in the comment section below. Alright, now next we have two lost games that are right on the next page to each other. We'll start with the skiing game. Now, look at the beautiful graphics that they have there on that screenshot, and the game itself is nothing really fancy from the description. It just sounds like a typical skiing game. Well, let's check out the skiing game that we did get. And as you can see, the skiing game that we got, although it is very valuable actually, looks nothing like that preview picture. What happened? Well, there's been a lot of debate about that. One person I talked to said they believe that maybe the artist's rendition was something they weren't able to accomplish with the limited memory of the ColecoVision. Who knows? But anyway, the skiing game that we got is still a pretty cool game, but looks nothing like the skiing game that was advertised in the catalog. All right, and next we're going to look at horse racing. This was going to be released by Fidelity. And here's the description. They're off and running. This horse racing game puts you right at the track with realistic sound effects and authentic action. Watch the board as the odds change. Hurry, place your bet. The horses start out of the gate, race around the bend, then jockey for position on the straightaway. Which horse will win? Place. Show. For the next race, the computer changes the entries, and if you want, even the track conditions. It's a different race every time. Okay. Now, of course, that game would not get released for the ColecoVision, even though you can kind of see they had a pretty cool screenshot up there. However, 2 years later, something quite similar did come out. In 1984, a game was released for the Sega SG-1000. This game was called Challenge Derby. And from what I've been able to make out, since I don't speak Japanese, is that you do place bets on the horses and you watch the race to see which horse ends up winning. It probably was similar to this, however, this could not possibly be the same game, as this game was created by a company called Sukuda Original and was released 2 years later for a different game system for the Sega SG-1000, a game system that never even got a US release. So even though it's not the same game, we can kind of get an idea of what that horse racing game would have been like. All right, and next up, across the page from Blackjack Poker Game, which was released and I've reviewed in the past and have played a lot, we have Tunnels and Trolls. This fantasy role-playing game for 1 to 4 players puts you into an adventure of the most fascinating kind. Your expedition involves your entrance into a mysterious dungeon made up of uncharted hallways and hidden chambers. You enter in search of priceless treasure, but the underground is populated by monsters. Choose to fight or run. Select from a variety of weapons, cast magic spells, or use your wits to defeat the monsters and claim the treasures. Will you emerge victorious? Now, Tunnels and Trolls was an alternative to Dungeons and Dragons. It was made by a company called Flying Buffalo in 1975. However, with this one, of course, the game was never found, but we did get a little something extra for this one. We have this demo screen. Now, is this something that was used as an advertisement at one of those gaming shows? Who knows? Maybe someday the ROM will turn up, or maybe a plucky homebrew programmer will make their own. It would be about 10 years later that a game would be made for the MS-DOS, though, based on Treasures and Trolls. Check it out if you haven't played it before. You probably will enjoy it. All right, and next up, we got 2 more games that are right across from each other that also never saw the light of day. And the first one is called Chess Challenger. This was to be also made by Fidelity Electronics, and the description is, this game uses the world champion chess programs by Fidelity. Plan your defense with care. The computer is a formidable opponent. It's your move. You've outmaneuvered him. There is no place for him to go. Checkmate. But don't get too confident. He'll never play the same way again. Now, it wasn't a new concept to create a video game version of chess. It had been done before, and it would be done again. However, this chess game actually was inspired by something kind of interesting. And that was this Chess Challenger, which was an electronic chessboard. So you could actually play against the computer with different levels of difficulty. So it would be an awesome opportunity for players back in the day to be able to practice against a computer, maybe if you were on the chess team or something. Of course, the pieces didn't move themselves. When it was the computer's turn, they would tell you which pieces to move to which square. Kind of a cool concept, and it's really too bad that the Chess Challenger game for the ColecoVision wasn't released, because that would have been pretty cool. And next we have Smurf Play and Learn cartridge. This educational cartridge provides children with the opportunity to learn as they play. The delightful Smurf characters bring basic learning concepts to the screen and encourage children to solve the problems and situations. Their zany antics make learning fun. Okay, so again, you see a screenshot there, and it looks kind of like a math game, but who knows exactly what it could have been. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot, and many of you watched the video I did a couple weeks ago about the KidVid games that were made by Coleco for the Atari 2600. Had that been more successful, this might have been the ColecoVision version of the KidVid, but unfortunately, no ROM has been found, and all we have is this advertisement, and we're left wondering, what it could have been. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments section below. And next up we have Domino Man. This arcade game was released in 1982 by Bally Midway, and I learned that there were plans to release a port of it on the Colecovision in 1983. However, it did not get released. Honestly, I was not familiar with this game at all until I read about it on a Lost Media wiki page. So the game itself is kind of cool. You're setting up these dominoes to knock over yourself, but you're trying to keep people and these killer bees away so that you can do the honors of knocking down the dominoes. It would have been neat. I don't think the game was ever ported out any other time, and honestly, like I said, I'd never heard of it. And our final game for today is Mr. Turtle, right across the page from Smurf Rescue in Gargamel's Castle. In this fun-filled game, Mr. Turtle comes to life on the screen. Now, who is Mr. Turtle? If any of you know, let me know in the comments section below. I tried doing research, and I see that it's trademarked, but anyway, Mr. Turtle needs your help on this treasure hunt. His goal is to collect the prizes that are located both on land and underwater, but each prize is guarded by an animal, some fierce, some funny. Mr. Turtle must outwit the creatures to obtain each treasure and score points. Okay, well, I promised you guys a surprise, and as of right now, this is no longer Lost Media. And no, the original ROM was not found, if it ever existed to begin with. Inspired by the picture in the catalog, a homebrew programmer decided, you know what, I'm not going to wait for it to get found, I'm going to make my own. God, I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard that, and have had some great homebrew games come out of that idea, and you're looking at it. Finally, Mr. Turtle was created based on the picture and the premise from the catalog. It looks great, it plays great, it's challenging, it's fun, and best of all, if you'd like to get it yourself, I have a link in the description below where you can purchase the game on cart to play on your own ColecoVision like it was intended back in the day. Well, so that brings us to the end of this episode. Do you think I missed any? Have you heard of any other Lost ColecoVision, ColecoVision Lost Media? Let me know about it in the comments section below, as I'd be more than happy to do a follow-up video. In our next episode, as promised, we will have games that were based on the Arabian Nights. Well, that brings this episode to a close. I really hope you all enjoyed this episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really enjoyed bringing it to you. If you did, let me know by smashing that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when we upload new episodes, and connect with us on all our social media platforms. You'll find the links in the description below. Also, don't forget to check out our Patreon page. We got some cool videos there that were too hot for YouTube, and you can only view them by becoming a Patreon. It doesn't matter what level of support you give us, you will have access to all our videos and extra goodies. So please be generous and help us out on Patreon. By the way, our 200th episode spectacular is coming up really soon, so keep an eye out for that. We're going to have some retrospective stuff, some talk about the plans ahead, some memorable moments, and all kinds of cool stuff. So please make sure you join us for our 200th episode spectacular. You're going to enjoy it. Well, until next time, I am Anthony Gamer, and I wish you all a great week. Until next time, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. Until we meet again, the arcade is now closed. Bye, everyone.